This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command-grade truth. Let's begin.
What's going on, everybody? This is Fred Smith. I have the one, the only Mr. Joe Montaldo on the show today. He is the high-level, amazing military veteran, as well as the founder of UPRN Radio. Super excited to have him on, and we were having a conversation the other day, and this is going to be something that's really critical for the entire veteran community to understand. We have been through a lot in our lifetimes, from signing the contract saying that we're going to protect the Constitution against the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. He's very well versed in a lot of policy, procedures, top to bottom, very well connected in the veteran community. He really loves helping people. And I'm super honored and thankful to have you on the show, which is actually your show since you're on the station. Just giving you a hard time. Love you, brother.
Well, no, it's your show. It's partially our show, but thank you, Fred. No, guys, anybody listening to this show now, after I tell you a couple of things, they may come looking for you. So just keep it in. So most people don't realize when we sign up for the military, it's 24/7. It's not like 9 to 5 or 8 to 7. It's 24/7 for life. Even when we're out, we can be called back. And whereas the military sets ages for people coming in, they don't really set ages for veterans. They look at us more as what have we done and can we be useful? They don't care if you're 50, 60. They don't really care. As long as they think you can be useful, they can bring you back. Now, we're not at war right now. As far as I know, we're I think we're well behaving actually at the moment. Trump has managed to keep us out of any wars, and once he ended 4 so far. So for us, it's nice, but I'm being serious when I tell you that they can bring us back anytime they want, for any reason they want. As long as they consider us to be useful, they can. And when we signed up, we didn't sign up, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going home. No, it's not how it works. You're 24/7. If you're needed, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, you have to go. And for people like Fred and I, we were on call anyway. It didn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, I remember duty stations where I was like, okay, we're going to get to sleep. We're talking 48 hours. And I was young back then. 48 hours wasn't a big deal. But today, 48 hours might be a big deal. So what you up to, Fred?
Yeah, same deal, man. I mean, because even I got called back. I never forget it. It's when September 11th hit. I was actually out in Hampton, Virginia, and I was doing my best to be a father to my daughter at the time. And next thing you know, I'm actually doing a regular 9 to 5. And next thing you know, we're watching the Twin Tower tragedy, right? And then I started working out again. And then people were like, well, what's going on? What's happening? Why are you working out so hard? I'm like, because I know they're going to call me back. And that's exactly what happened. And I was just a regular NCO, non-commissioned officer. And to your point, I watched so many people get so angry about the one thing that you just said. And I'm just like, you didn't read the fine print. Like, it doesn't even matter whether you're commissioned, which they say is in perpetuity, for the nation that happens as with special designations like I had, and I'm pretty sure you have as well. So it's one of those things where, again, to me, just from that reality, I discovered that I'm always on the clock, like, period. So I've had to learn how to live my life like that, being a Marine, force and readiness to begin with anyway, but more specifically, really understanding that it's still the mission to this day. It doesn't matter whether you're boots on ground in a foreign land or you're here locally, it is still boots on the ground. So
it's still boots on the ground. I remember when it happened. I remember when 9/11 happened. I'm thinking, that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, oh shit. I said, here we go. I knew right off the bat I was going to get pulled in no matter what. So I thought, since I had multiple MOSs, I thought, oh, what are they going to pull me in for? And first they pulled me in. They said, okay, we're going to put you back on the Nimitz as a avionics electronics. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of a little high in rank for that now. And the guy said, well, we just need extra people there. He said, we need somebody to run these people. I said, okay, fine. And then when I got there, he's like, oh, no, you're going to be SPSP, which is, I like to call it double special forces. It's not what it actually is. So what we did was is if the SEALs got busted or caught, our job was to go in and get them. Now, think about this, people. These are the SEALs. These are the most special forces the Navy has, almost. Um, so if they got caught, our job was to go retrieve these guys. And I'm thinking, really? Wait, we're going to do what? I'm thinking, wait a minute. You're telling me we're going to go get what? The SEALs just got caught and our job is to go get them, right? I'm like, oh, man, doesn't sound like a job I wanted. But, it is a job I ended up with. And they mixed me around. And I'm sure Fred had the same thing. So the military, especially the Navy and Marines, have the tendency to move you from MOS to MOS. They like to make sure that we're well-rounded, that in a case of a war that we can do more than one job.
Yeah.
Not
And it's funny you
exactly
say it
sure
just
why.
like, yeah, no, it's funny you say it just like that, because even in the Marine Corps, what my job was so specialized that I literally held the billet of a gunnery sergeant. So I had to do everything from the private responsibility up to the gunnery sergeant, which in that case was public affairs, media relations, broadcasting, journalists, like end-to-end communication, running a studio, running a news, a paper, doing the printing, doing the editing, like A to Z, soup to nuts. And it really came in handy because when you're really in a combat zone, you don't have time to really, it's called the fog of war, as you know. So you have to really literally be a force in readiness and self-contained at the exact same time to make
And
sure that you still can have mission accomplishment and troop welfare. So yeah, that was definitely me. I didn't hit the commission levels because even when I wanted to be commissioned, the problem was I was so specialized and so needed and wanted that I was getting turned down. Like I had what they call a class alpha MOS. So I wanted to do primary marksman instructor school, couldn't do that. I wanted to do SEER school, couldn't do that. I wanted to do jump school, couldn't do that. They're just like, your brain is just too valuable. I'm like, well, I need to know I need to know what's going on with the action. That's one of the reasons why I did what they call a hot fill, as you know, and that's how I joined the expeditionary unit. And we were actually out there in the Arabian Gulf, doing several operations during real time war. So
so your job is important as anybody else's because one, soldiers need to know what's going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's not necessarily you need to know what's going on, but we need to know what's going on. So, and hearing it from your CEO is one thing. Hearing it for somebody who's out in the shit's a whole different thing.
yeah,
So when we're getting in reports, or at least we know what's going on, we have a better idea of what's going on, and we want to hear that. We know, especially when we know it's coming from someone who's serving. It just makes our life easier because don't get me wrong, I trusted my CEO, but in the end, he was going to tell me what he thought I needed to know. Fred's telling us what's going on, so it's a whole different kind of thing. It's
yeah,
kind of like what was his name, Ryan Williams, when he was in Vietnam. Not quite the same, but it's got the same connotations. And it said, it was so nice to know there were people in the field doing it, and knew there were people in combat zones doing it, and they were talking to people who were in this shit, and we were getting that information, which was nice to have because on board the ship we weren't getting all that information. We were getting what our CEO thought we needed to know, and that was it.
that's it.
And if we asked too many questions, oh man, that was just not a good question. So we learned that we could there was a particular couple of stations that we could get on that we could pick up people like Fred, and we were all like, you'd see us, we'd be glued to the radio. It'd be 50, 60 guys sitting there listening
Yep.
because we wanted to know what's going on because we know we're headed into these areas. We knew we were going to be. And when somebody tells you that Navy people don't get in the shit, they lied to you. Even though we have the Marines to really take the brunt of it, which is grateful. In the end, we still see combat duty, and
Yeah.
it's hard to make people understand that. A friend of mine's like, "Well, y'all never leave the ship." I said, "Yeah, I wish." I said it would have been nice to know. I said I'd have been a happy camper if I would have had never leave the ship.
Yeah.
And
That was like me because I was all over not only the amphibious ready group, but the whole battle group. I mean, I was practically on every single ship, cross decking, actually out there in the field. We had several beer days that I was never a member of because I was out in the field, literally, like you said, to your point,
Mhm.
reporting what was happening on the ground. And that's actually how I got stuck out there by myself over 30 days on record. People don't understand that that's a real thing because when you have
Yeah,
the
it
fog
is.
of war and you have real conflicts going on, what may have worked or would have planned can quickly like go away. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, my captain, I remember like it was yesterday. He was like, "Hey, Corporal Smith, here are these movements. Don't know if it's going to work. And no, by the way, you got to catch that bird, 45 minutes." I go out and then within 2 days, I don't know where the next unit's going to be. So I was unit hopping. I'm gaining like 8,000 pounds. I think I told you that before. looking for water, just really out there in this stuff. So it really is not only just a fog of war, but I still had to have the wherewithal to be able to report back with units to being like, hey, this is exactly what's going on right now. So it was one of the most insane times of my life. And I'd like to tell everybody, regardless of whatever your preference is, I say there are no atheists in combat. You know, you just, when you're out there at that level and you don't know when your next meal is going to happen, you just tend to look for a higher authority. So
Boy, isn't that true?
yeah, and with me, I actually fell unconscious on ship for about 5 days. It's a long story, but just to make a long story short, you know, that's one of the reasons why me and you, when we were talking yesterday, we were really focusing in on like veterans, not only just mental health, but exactly what's going on in the community in general. So
Yeah, well, it's tough when you've been in combat zones. Well, Dennis, no, you're getting it wrong. No, the Marines were there mainly to keep us safe. Don't think they were there to keep you safe. No. They were there to keep us safe. So
yeah,
we were considered valuable in a lot of ways. So their job was to make sure us squiddies were safe. Now, you know, sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Everybody always, oh, they're the first line. Well, they are the first line, but they're the first line to protect the Navy. I don't think most of you understand how this actually works. The Marines and the Navy are one unit. We call ourselves two different things. But if you ever see a Marine check, you're going to see U.S. Navy written on it. And their job is really and truly to make sure us, because, you know, a lot of squids couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag with the top open. Some of them could, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them, frankly, they need to stay on the ship. I'm just going to be as nice as I can about this. But
that's
the
coming from
problem
a
is,
sailor, not a Marine.
yeah, it's true. No, don't get me wrong. We had our own special forces groups, but don't get me wrong. Most of the sailors just needed to stay on the ship. They really weren't designed for combat, even though they have combat training. Everybody in all militaries have combat training, except for maybe the Coast Guard. But all the rest of them, it doesn't matter who are. You're getting some kind of combat training because you never know when you might be needed in combat. But to be honest with you, like the tenders and stuff like that, the sub guys, they had no business being in the field, none whatsoever. They want to get their asses killed. They would have lasted about 8 seconds because one, it's not so much that you can shoot straight or you can do that. It's being able to kill someone, and that most people can't just walk up. So in Vietnam, the reason so many people, Americans, died is because they couldn't kill someone. They didn't have what it took to kill someone. So you have about 8 seconds to make not even really that, about 4 seconds to make up your mind whether you're going to shoot that guy, he's going to shoot you. Well, if you don't shoot him, he's going to shoot you. He's going to shoot your friends. He's going to shoot everybody around you. So I don't think you understand what that does to a person. If he survives that, it racks their brain. And killing someone the first time, your brain, I don't know how to describe it, but your brain is like, you know, it's to you, it's for most people, it's murder. To me, it wasn't murder, but to most people, it's murder. And when you come home, especially if you only ever done it one time, when you come home, you're dealing with that. It's in your head. You can't a lot of these guys can't let go of this. So all of a sudden, and the VA's biggest thing is, oh, let me give you some drugs. I mean, that was their thing. Let's just drug them up, then maybe they'll forget. No, you're not going to forget. Now, once you've done it 8, 9, 10 times, it's different, especially when you know you're doing it for your country or to save your friends' lives. It's a different feeling. You don't have that same feeling, and you can cope with it better. But even they have troubles with it. What's that, Christopher? None. I'd shoot your ass in a heartbeat. It's wouldn't even think twice about it. Pop, you're dead. Move on. Let's go to the next one. It's different because you're trained differently. You know, I was trained where if you kill somebody, you kill somebody because you needed to kill somebody. It's you know, we were trained that way. It's in your head. And of course, the more you've done it, the more it's in your head, the less likely it's going to affect you. But that's because you're trained for it. If you're not trained for this, which, let's be honest, for 90% of the military is not actually trained. They're trained to go out there and fight, but they're not trained to kill somebody. They're not trained for the effects of what killing somebody is going to do to them.
Yeah, and I want to really add to, and I really want to add to what you say because and what you said earlier was spot on, because even in the Marine Corps, that it doesn't matter whether you got a cook or anybody else like that, you are a rifleman first, period.
You are.
So that is the main reasons why when you're to your point, when you're going out there and now the enemy's gotten sophisticated. They know that they should be going after the supply units and everything else. So everybody's trained up to think that one way. And that's what makes the Marines really different. The first 90 days, we're only focused in on that one thing that you're talking about. We're either the first ones to fight or we're the first ones to be dead. Take your pick. So we tend to be engineered like that. Then we learn what we're supposed to be doing as as a job in the military. But to your point, we're your like spearhead into that beach.
That is.
So that we're able to really have you land and do what you have to do for fire and maneuver.
Frankie, what he's saying is so everybody in Marines, everybody in the Marines, doesn't matter what your MOS is, everybody in Marines is taught to kill. That's just that's their job. So in the end, they're combat first and everything else second. So if there's no combat going on, then they can do whatever their jobs are to do, whether they're the cook, whether they're communications, it doesn't really matter. They're doing that. Now, when somebody starts shooting and lobbing rocks at them, nope, everybody becomes combat. Even the cook is out there. He's got his, he's out there with his rifle shooting people. It's and if he don't shoot people, he's dead. And it's not just people. It's not just if you shoot someone. If there's a guy aiming down at you and you don't shoot, he's going to kill you. He might kill 2, 3, 4 of your friends before anybody realizes what's going on. So your job is to make sure that person doesn't get the chance. Your job is to make sure he's dead, or whatever you want to call it today. But anyway, you want to make sure he's visiting whoever he believes.
Yeah.
It's
well, no, I mean, what you're saying is spot on, brother. Because that's the whole thing. That's one of the reasons why I want to go a little bit deeper into this conversation, is because we're programmed to do that. But what's the unprogramming, and how does that really translate once we're done? Yeah, and we're back in garrison, and people suffer, especially if they happen to have a few bodies up under their belt, right? So what does that really look like when they come home? And then, like, even for me, it was the craziest thing, if you told me what you had to do in the Marine Corps, would you have to kill me? And I'm just like, bro, that's not funny. It's like, you don't understand.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's how do you have a relationship? I mean, how it's a hard thing. I mean, you're going to wake up with dreams in the middle of the night. So like I said earlier, some people deal with it easier than others, but 90% of the people who have had to take someone's life is going to have, especially when they get home, because I'll give you a little quick thing. So when I was in the Navy and somebody didn't make it through boot camp, we called them cosmonauts, but they actually had to go through deprogramming before they were let out of the service. They actually put them through a deprogramming before they let them go home. So they'll tell you once you've served in duty, whether you killed somebody or not, once you've been in the shit, basically, they want you to see therapists. They want you to talk about this. They want you to work this out. Well, the problem with therapists is most of them, I don't want to put them all in the same boat, but most of them is okay. Talk to a friend. Oh, your friend's dead, or take drugs. For a lot of people, drugs is not the answer. Drugs might make you lose your mind, go shoot a bunch of people, or choke out your wife in the middle of the night. I mean, the thing of it is they need people to talk to who have been in it, understand what they're going through, and are able to work this out. And unfortunately, I really think that some of the shrinks should be shrinks that actually served. I think that would make it easier. And because they're not going to say, okay, here's his Xanax, go home, take 7, 8, 9 Xanax. Well, what's that going to do? You're going to be walking around and the problem with that is you're trained. Some kid bumps you and knocks you over. Next thing you know, you got the kid choking him out before you even realize what's going on. It's not a good thing. I'll give you all a perfect example. We were having a barbecue at my house, and my son brought over one of his friends. He's about 6'1", 6'2", and he walked up and looped his arms before I realized what had happened. I had one arm in his throat. I mean, I had a kid lifted off the wall, and one arm right aimed to the side of his ribs, where you break the ribs that go in for the heart. If my son wouldn't have been there screaming at me, I might have killed this kid.
Wow.
It takes time to get past that. That kind of training just doesn't go away. And part of you, and I hate to say this, part of you wants to keep it because it's protection, even in the real world. But in the real world, we don't really need it. That's what law enforcement is for.
Yeah,
we don't need that. And trying to drug somebody up on it is just not going to work. Could you imagine me on a bunch of Xanax? Jesus, I'd have been one of them mass shooters or something.
Yeah, no, and you're really raising a good point, man. So what have you seen out here so far? Because again, you know my background. After I got the Marine Corps, I did some crazy stuff in the automotive industry, scaled up billion-dollar companies, and I'm just now coming back down to civilian world, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So I went through my transition really hard over the last 2 years, and it was very tough. I mean, people who know me know that, I was on drugs, smoked weed, was losing my mind, and almost burnt down the house, and then wound up getting help and getting myself really cleaned up, because that's what it really takes. And I remember going to the VA and they were like, hey, you can take this drug right here. And oh, if you take this one, you can never get off of it. I'm just like, well, what do you mean? It's just like,
Yes,
you never gave me the playbook on how to like get the deprogramming. It's interesting you say that, brother, because I'd never heard that until now. That's brand new to me.
Yeah. Well, so when on my 9th year, when I was when they had asked me to re-up and I said no, I still remember this. My commander says, Joe, you're going to have to go through, what did he call it? Detoxification. Anyway, I can't exactly remember the name, but he said, you're going to have to go through this. I said, for being avionics and electronics. He said, you know damn good and well what I'm talking about. And I said, yes, I do. And sure enough, when I got out, it wasn't even a psychiatrist. It was a specialist in this. And he said, he asked me all kind of questions, what I did when I wasn't working my other MOS. He said, look, you need to talk about this. I said, I'm not going to tell you what I did while I was there. You can forget it. I said, I'm still coming to terms with it myself. And he said, well, let me give you this. And I said, no, I'm not taking drugs. I said, if I want drugs, I'll get them off the damn street. And I said, I don't really need drugs from you. And he's like, and this went on for about 2 years. And then finally he goes, you know what? He said, you seem to be adjusted. You seem to be okay. I'm going to release you out of the thing. And I'm like, really? And I knew for the most part, I was okay. But like I told you with this kid, sometimes it's not even the first time. I was down in the French Quarter and this guy come running up on me. And I was like, dude, don't. Before I knew it, I had my knee on his neck.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on the ground choking out, and I stood up and I said, look, I said, special forces don't do that, man. I said, we're trained to react. We're not trained to think. We're trained to react. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, we're not trained to think, dude. I said, in other words, the time it would take me to think what I just did, you could have killed me. I said, so we're trained to react. There's no thinking in between. So it took a while, but nowadays I'm just a boring old shit. That's the best way I can say it.
There's nothing boring about you, bro.
Don't get it wrong, people. If I wanted to choke you out, I could, but it's just
well, I mean,
I don't think about it anymore. I guess is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is super legit, because the reality of it is, like, those mechanisms are still in your body, and the whole thing about it is really understanding how to control those mechanisms and actually diminish the effects of it. Because that's the reasons why I wanted to talk to you specifically, because what people don't understand, at least from my understanding of the world, okay, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, but one thing that I don't hear is that there's a difference between the mind and the brain. The brain is this physical mechanism. The mind is like the operating system. I look at it no differently than firmware on your phone. Like, this is the body, right? We can see the body, but what you don't see is the firmware. That's the brain. And then those little apps is your mind. It's already been like, there's a certain algorithm or a certain movement. And I keep it that simple. People go, oh my God, like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, well, it's not even a matter of figuring it out. It's just really observing. But we don't, when I joined the Marine Corps, my spirituality got severed, like period.
That's the
because
truth.
you've got to be able to point an M16 A2 service rifle at somebody and pull the trigger and not think twice about it. Like, that's what you're being programmed to do for at least 90 days. And then you go into specialty schools. So it's like, what part of that don't you guys understand? That happens for real.
It's the way to look. So when I was in boot camp, I was 20 for 20 on at 100 yards, 300 yards, and 500 yards. That's what got them interested in me. And then they see me with the pistol. But what really got them interested in me is these two guys were going to try to beat me up. And I still remember my commander. He said, you stood there like, go ahead and try. And he said, I knew right there was no fear in you. He said, you could shoot and there was no fear. And he said, you already had command abilities. We had already seen that. That's why I got my Renacro before I got promoted to an officer. And a rent-a-crow people is I was E4, which was a petty officer basically. But I was only 8 months out of boot camp, which is almost unheard of. And the guy was like, "Well, we're going to give you a rent-a-crow." I was like, "Wow, really?" And then the only reason I got promoted to officer is because I did some stuff that warranted. I thought I was going to get promoted to warrant officer, but they went ahead and repromoted me to lieutenant, to a whatchamacallit, right before lieutenant. I mean, it's like a junior lieutenant, and then I got promoted to lieutenant, and then they had offered me lieutenant commander when I decided I was going to leave. They were promoting me really fast and like a super fast rate. I would have probably made captain in under 10 years, which is, as far as I know, is unheard of.
Yeah,
well, Jack, a captain is equivalent to a colonel in the rest of the military.
Yeah.
So see, when you talk captains in other militaries, it's a lower rank than a captain is in the Navy. We don't have that in between, so we kind of skip a rank. So when you talk about a colonel, which is, I don't think y'all understand, when people think a colonel is some BS. Colonel is a serious rank in the military.
100%.
This is your step before you're a general, and I said, and captain's the same thing. And it's not that I didn't like the military. I just didn't like I knew we were going to get in other wars, and I could see more wars coming up in the Middle East. And I said, okay, I did my duty, and I think it's time to get out. Yeah, I said, I think it's just time to get out. And to answer your question, Stephanie, no, I never told my wife, and we've been married 43 years. I've never talked to her about it.
It's one of those things. I'm glad we're having this part of the conversation as well, because my wife didn't even know about a lot of this stuff until.
What happened? We lost Fred.
My guys came to the place. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. You just froze for a second. It was like.
It's kind of like chips, back in the 80s. It's one of those things where even like my wife didn't know about any of this stuff until like around 2021, because I didn't get officially like debriefed until November of 2020, and I had been out for a long time. What people don't understand is just like that whole mindset, especially when you carry like a secret clearance and above, you're still subject to terms and conditions long after you're out. So you still have to mind your words and be careful about what you say. And then I had some buddies come over to the house, high level clearances, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, remember the time when blah blah blah," and she's just like, "That stuff really happens?" I'm like, yeah, it's a real deal. And the thing about it is like you're almost living two lives, because I had to compartmentalize that part of my life while still trying to be a regular civilian. And that's like one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're really smart and you know that you're capable. And then I don't know about you, but I've talked to a whole bunch of people with high level clearances, especially during the 90s. Nobody got like really like offboarded the right way. So it's just like, what do you say? What do you do? And it's one of those things where I wasn't trying to become famous or popular. I just wanted to live my life. And that's one of the things that makes it so tough. And I can only imagine everybody else who really has been through the same battles like me and you have, especially as smart as I am. I'm just like, well, how do I really translate this into something that can not only serve me, but really serve others, not on that high level that me and you played on, but just really coming back to earth and like, Cinderella, midnight hits, you're turned into a pumpkin. Okay, cool. I'm back in general population. But what do you do now? You follow me? So I've had to live that life for so long that when I could even
because there's some stuff even today I can't talk about. It's what's nice when you can talk about people with decent clearances, because I still remember this. This is Katrina. I had a construction company, and this guy calls me up and said, "I need you to come by my house. I want to talk to you about something." I figured it was about how we're going to remodel his house and the condos and stuff, because we had picked up like a 20 condo set. And he said, "Joe, I used to be a forensic expert for the FBI." I was like, "Really, man? That's kind of cool." He said, "Yeah, so I ran a background check on you." He said, "I got in all kind of trouble." I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, they run a background check on you every 4 years." He said, "Your clearance is like off the chart." He said, "There's nobody in the FBI even got a clearance like that." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "It's a class 10 clearance." I said, which is like 4 levels above top secret, might even be 5 levels as far as I know.
Oh yeah.
I said it was for specific things I did while I was in the service. And he looks at me, he said, "I guess you can't tell me." I said, "No, I can't." And he goes, "Well, I just wanted to know the guy who's working on my houses." And he gave us the whole contract after that. You could just see his face, because my stepson was with me. My son's, he's looking at me like, "Who the fuck were you?" It's like, don't worry. I said, don't worry about it, Sam. It's not important. He said, really? I said, yeah, it's not. It's nothing important. And people
Well,
get this. They get confused when they hear it because I work in another field now, chasing down aliens and stuff, and people always say the same thing. Oh, well, that's what you were doing in the Navy. That is not what I was doing in the Navy, people. I'm just telling y'all that's not what I did in the Navy. What I do
can I
now is
share
not what I
something
did
with them,
then.
brother? Can
Sure,
I
go ahead,
share?
man.
Can I share?
Yeah,
Because
feel free.
okay, cool. So I'm going to share something. Like, this is totally unscripted between me and Joe. And again, this is public domain stuff. So I want to share with you exactly what he's talking about. Okay. This is the way the game really is played from a very high level. Anybody can go to Wikipedia and actually check this out. Right. So if you aren't even on this grid at all, you are not in the game, like, period. Like, you have no idea what's going on. Even at the confidential level is still one of those things. And for me, I'm still on the far right side of this grid. Now, Joe, you can share whatever you want from here, but what I want people to understand is, like, really the magnitude of information compartmentalization, so that they can have a real understanding of, like, to me, all of those different compartments represent, like, different parts of my life. It's just like you have to really manage your behavior in a certain way. And to me, this can cause problems if you don't manage it properly. So that's all I wanted to say on this chart. As soon as you said that, brother, that's all.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I got my renter crow, I was it's hard to explain. So I had done 2 years of special forces, and I did a year in the field, which I can't even talk about still. But that was just a class 4 or 5, and then when I came back to the Nimitz, I was doing my other MOS, which is Advanced Avionics. I was actually a shooter, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, shooter's the guy who launches the jets. Just in case y'all didn't know. And I was on the Nimitz, and that's what I was doing. And one day they brought up an A6 intruder, and they had a missile problem with it. And I walked over there, and they've been trying to get this missile fixed for hours. And I got him, I'm cursing. I said, get the bleep, get that out of the way. And I walked over 5 minutes, I fixed it, right? They launched the jet. So, no, the number one, he calls me. He's a lieutenant. He's a lieutenant commander. He calls me. Actually, he's a commander. I'm sorry. He calls me up. He goes, you fix that in 5 minutes, really? I'm like, yeah. He said, we've been having this real problem with one of our advanced radar system. We're talking advanced, people. This is stuff they don't even like to talk about. So I said, yeah. I walked in. He said, I turned off the radar system. I said, I'll fix it. I get in 5 minutes later. I said, it's fixed. He goes, Joe, this thing's been doing this for 5 years. No way you're fixing it. I said, it's fixed. So they turned it back on. They're working. He's kicking on it and stuff, trying to make it glitch. And I said, what's the mess? It's not going to glitch. He said, well, how in the... He said, you know how many people looked at this thing? I said, yeah, probably a dozen or so. He said, how do you feel? I said, you really want to know what's wrong with it? I said, you're going to be pissed when I tell you. I said, there was a little nick in some wire. And every now and then when the ship hit a big wave or something, it would hit against the thing and short it out. He said, you're kidding me, right? I said, no, that's what it was. He said, he was so stalled. This guy's commander. He said, well, I got to get you off the bridge. You're not supposed to be up here because of your rank. I said, oh, that's fine. So he sends me back down, and they had me fix something else. And then the captain asked to see me. And I was like, oh, shit, enlisted men never get to see the captain, guys, ever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, shit, I'm getting thrown off the ship. And so I go up there, and he's talking to me. He said, I'm going to approach you to lieutenant. He said, because you really can't be a lower rank than that. He said, we let ensigns on here, but that's only for my own private use. He said, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. So we're right before lieutenant. Anyway, it's like a junior lieutenant. Anyway, so he does that. And it wasn't even 9 months before they promoted me to lieutenant because I was working in the reactor. By the way, you can go on old Salty 68, right? And old Salty is the reactor room. And on the back, it's at 1, 2, 3rd nut. You'll see JM carved into it. It's my initial still carved in that freaking ship even today, and because the reactor has never been removed. And so I was promoted to a full lieutenant, and then so my captain who was running special ops calls me. He said, "We got a job for you. We want you to come back and do this." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm packing my shit, right? The commander calls. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, my offer, which is my first MOS, is special ops. He said, where do you think you're going? I said, I'm going to go serve my country like I'm supposed to. He said, you're not going anywhere. I said, sir, he's a captain. He ordered me to go. I have no choice. I have to go. He said, just hold on. he goes up and sees the captain, which, by the way, my captain was fleet commander, so he carried a lot more rank than the other guy did. He made a phone call, and then he calls me up to his office. He said, "You're not going anywhere. You're permanently attached to the ship until you retire." I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Your class has been upgraded to a class 10, so you couldn't go work for them assholes anyway." His words, not mine. And he said, "Your class is too high to go work for them." And I was like, he said, "Class 10." I said, he said, "Besides myself, you have the second highest rank on this ship." He said, "Matter of fact, you probably have the second highest rank in the entire damn fleet." Wow. I was like, "Well, I got to go work sub duty. I got to go not just sub duty. I got to go work the cockpit of the sub, which is unheard of." I mean, your security clearance has to be so high to work. It's one thing to actually drive the sub or be part of the sub or work the sub. It's a whole another thing when you start getting into the inner workings of it. Then they have a lot of sensitive systems on it. Even today, that I guarantee the Russians would want to know what I was doing there. And he said, "So your clearance." It's just, so I was like, "Oh, how high?" He said, "Joe, I don't think you understand what we gave you." He said, "Your clearance is probably higher than the freaking president's." He said, he said, "You could probably go to Area 51 where these guys couldn't." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, yeah." He said, "You just don't understand." But, working
you're bringing up some interesting thing right there. This is where our paths also connect, because even from a high level, what I was doing when I was going to school, I went to one of the guys. He was the public affairs guy for Area 51. People don't think that that's a real thing. Now, what goes on behind the scenes? Yeah, you would know more about that than I do. But the reality of it is, I'm going to school with these types of people. They don't understand that, like, when you have this kind of high level knowledge, it just doesn't magically just go away. You follow me? So I think that's one of the things that
it's a lifetime thing. It just they technically, and I guarantee they do it on Fred too. They do a background check on me every 4 years since I've been out of the service. Every 4 years. The FBI does it 1 year, the CIA does it. I mean, the FBI does it 4 years, and the CIA does it 4 years.
I'll answer it a different way. I get the magic phone call for somebody getting adjudicated, and my number isn't listed.
Well, I've been censured twice for saying things. Well, my dumb ass. So I'm listening one day. They said they're gonna decommission the Nimitz. So I gave her real battle speed out. Oh man. Well, they decided they're gonna keep her. Oh man, I get this phone call. "Joe, what the hell are you doing?" I said, "Well, you said you were decommissioning her." I said, "Well, I was just." He said, "Joe, we are not." I said, "It said on TV you were decommissioning the damn ship that was going away at the Enterprise." He said, "Well, they decided to keep her." He said, "So the next time you're on your little radio show or TV, you need to retract that statement and say you were wrong." I'm like, nobody's going to believe that.
That's why I'm turning red over here, man. It's too unbelievable, the connections.
It was kind of funny, kind of scary. He says, "Well, he said, what does he tell me?" He said, "Well, I would threaten you that we could take it away, but technically it's too high to be taken away." He said, "So, he said, because if we took it away, then you could spill your guts." So that's not going to happen. And then wait, the best part is they send me a new paper, sign this. I'm like, "What do you mean sign this?" He said, we just want you to re-up on you. I said, "I'm not signing anything." I said, "I've been out of the military like 25 years at this point." And he said, "You're going to sign this or you're going to go take a vacation at Leavenworth." I'm like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay." Send it back to him. All because I said something. Well, because they tell you the battle speed of them is like 35 knots. And the first time I heard that on TV, I started laughing, but I didn't say anything. When I was on a show with Stephen Bissett, and he's telling me this, and I started laughing. I said, no, let me tell you what it really is, because they said they were going to decommission it.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I still remember
that happened
that
with the Enterprise too. That's very scary information, because the way that I've had to explain it, because sometimes the press will press you literally. It's like, well, let's just say that it can go from here to Florida in just a few hours.
Yeah, I was like, and Steven's like, "We're going to get in trouble on me." I said, "You're not going to get in trouble." I said, "I might, but you're not." I said, "You're a civilian. They don't give a what you think." I said, "But see, me, they have to take serious." I said, "Because the Russian and Chinese probably know what my security clearance is." That's another thing, people. I am not allowed to travel in China or Russia. They will not let me go. Even if I wanted to go, I'm not allowed to go. They would not give me a passport to go there. And think about this, people. Everything in my head now is 30-something years old, and they still won't let me go. Obviously,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I worked on is still in commission today, or what the Navy has a tendency to do is they'll build and design something and they just keep upgrading it.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same system, just upgrade it. And I'll tell you something, they got stuff on that ship that you could see your hemorrhoid in your ass and on the other side of the planet. Just telling you,
Well,
I
what
can't
you're
get in
saying is
trouble for
very
that.
real. Yeah, because well, yeah, even one of my buddies, as an example, he redesigned when we were at the expeditionary unit. He literally redesigned one of their S9 systems, and it's still in use to this day, like practically unaltered. He just fixed it that good, and this was back in '98. So it's one of those things where, and it's the problem. And this is why I want to really go in a little bit deeper this part of the conversation with you. How do we take people who are very smart, talented, and capable? And this is, and again, this is unscripted between me and Joe. So I want y'all to really understand this. Joe, he's so smart that it's one of those things where we have to find like other civilian things, and if not, then we have to create them. But fortunately, we're lucky. What about the ones who really they have a early end of life, if you understand what I'm saying? Because I want to
Mhm.
make sure that this sticks, and it's 22 veterans a day, and it's actually closer to 45. Like, Joe,
Yeah, it is.
how do we really work with that part of our culture to get them to understand that you can have smart models like me and you, and it's totally possible for them to really pivot? Because I mean, I've seen stuff too, and I know you've seen stuff, but it's just a matter of really, how do you get past that so that we can become really model citizens and set a good example out here once we
Well,
come back?
and the question is, who can you talk to about that? There's no shrink you can talk to about that. More than likely, I would be scared to talk to shrink because damn, they might be working for the Chinese or the Russians. I
Real
just,
talk.
it's. Oh, you're on my pal talk. Okay, well, Thomas, how can I say this without getting in trouble? So, if I was to talk to a shrink, I could tell him this much went on in my life because everything else is classified. And he doesn't have the clearance to talk about it. Matter of fact, as far as I know, there's no Navy shrinks anywhere that are classified to talk about most of what I know. So, I mean, who am I supposed to talk to? I can talk to fellow people who have served. There's no other way. And I think what happens to some of the vets is they forget. Yeah, they can't really talk to Joe Schmo, but they can talk to friends and other people who have served with the same clearances or higher, because those people will understand. They'll understand. Hey, look, it's not easy to get back in civilian life. Civilian life has its own set of challenges. It's hard to understand this, people, but when you serve, you lose all remnants of civilian life. Civilian life is like a foreign thing to us. So when you come home, it's like being in a foreign country for a while. It takes a while to get used to the 9 to 5 grind, to drive to work, maybe marry, get kids, whatever. It's foreign to us. And it takes time to adjust to that. And some people need help adjusting to it. When I first got out, I was drinking, drunken, whoring, you name it. Because be honest with you, I was just trying to hide stuff from myself. I'll be honest about it. And then when I met my wife, she had to put up with a real asshole because I didn't beat her or anything, but I was a real asshole. And it took time for me to thank God she knew how to deal with me, but and she didn't even know why. She thought it was over the loss of my dad, which I use as an excuse all the time because I lost him at 16, but it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with other stuff that I still, even this day, I can't tell her. But she somehow worked it and helped me a lot, because without her, I don't know where I would have ended up. I was pissed at the world. It's the only way I could say it. I was like, you just dropped me back in this, because military life is structured.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. I mean, you can rely on the person standing next to you. You don't have to worry about things. Your check's coming in. Your duty roster is done. Your money, where you're going to live. All of this is there. When you come home, it's not like that. You got to start working on how you're going to make a living, where you're going to live at, what it is that you want to do in life. What is it that you can do in life, especially if you were just a grunt, it makes it twice as hard.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had no other MOS but to kill people,
yep,
it makes it twice as hard. I mean, just no job for that. I guess you could be law enforcement, But then you still gonna have to watch how you deal with people because someone might set you off. Guys, it's hard to explain this to people without actually having this happen. It really, really is. I mean, I tell this to people all the time because I talk to vets all the time, but it without it happening to yourself, it's hard. Now, fortunately, these days there are a lot of women who are serving. I mean, it's just you have to have someone to talk to let those feelings out. I'm gonna tell you, drugs and alcohol is not the way. I'm sure half the vets I know have gone that route, but it's just not the way. Find a good friend, somebody who served, and talk to them about it. They'll listen. Well, I hope they will.
Well,
Or do
that's the
like I
reason.
do. Take the lightsaber to their ass and then
Well, brother, that's one of the reasons why I'm glad we really have bonded the way that we have, is
yeah.
because I've had to really watch what I've had to say and how I move over the years. And now that I'm like really out there public, to your point, fortunately, I was able to still take what I did in the Marine Corps and still do some crazy stuff in my life, right? But like I said, when the clock struck midnight, I didn't realize there was an American Legion. Like I didn't realize there was a VFW. Like there's all of these leagues and all of these associations. Like and even when I got out, they tried their best. They gave me a test to say, hey, okay, let's just see where you'll be at and blah, blah, blah. And it turned out to be sales and marketing. I'm like, sales and marketing. What I did wasn't even close to that. Like, what are we talking about right here? So then, and I still had a clearance at that time, and it was just like nobody wanted to hire me. It was just a bunch of hot mess because a lot of people like you, I'm pretty sure, like in my particular profession, it was like, okay, well, my friends are still working at Department of Defense or doing intel or they're doing whatever, right? But these are the challenges that we go through because we've been not only niched out, but we've also been pulled out of what I call the matrix. It's just like you're no longer that person when you sign that paper to also to learn your profession and actually become a military person. Like your whole life is just, it's not the same anymore.
Yeah. Well, Belinda, is that your name? If you serve 1 year, it's a little bit different. Once you serve several years, the longer you're in, the harder it is to get out. And if you've been in combat zones, it makes it even harder. It's part of the monkey, is that what you call it? It's a tough thing. I mean, I tell people all the time, I always tell people to find other vets who have gotten their life together. Well, look at Fred. Fred's big. He's not some little guy. I mean, he looks like a little guy on the camera. He's a big old boy, and he just bitch slap your ass. So the thing about it is people like that and people like myself, you have to restructure your mind itself. Not to when somebody's getting in your face telling you something, instead of just picking it up and going, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing.
Well, mine was twice as worse because I'm like this pretty boy. I'm like, people don't realize I almost got kicked out of the Marine Corps. Like this is what Joe's talking about is a real thing. Like I didn't even almost make it out of boot camp because I'm having fights with my drill instructors, like straight up. I mean, people don't understand it's a tough environment, but then you go out to Fleet Marine Force and you got all these other things. I'm a real world operator. I've been out there. I'm a combat vet. And then you come back home and just people look at you like you got 5 heads, but thank you for your service. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but okay.
Oh, I know. I love when somebody tells me, well, thank you for your service. I'm like, I kind of feel insulted, actually.
Wow.
I don't, somebody said, and don't get me wrong, I'm all the time people tell me that when we're on air, thank you for your service. And I'm like, well, you don't know what the bleep I did. Don't be thanking me for. I said, for you know, I might have killed your uncle. I mean, just don't. Yeah. I don't know why I shouldn't get offended by it, but I do. And people, I'm not telling y'all to stop telling that to vets. It's just for some reason it rubs the meat wrong way.
No, listen, what you're saying, I want to honor because I don't know if anybody's really acknowledged you for saying that. Because for me, the problem was I didn't even know whether I should say I'm a Marine, I'm a former Marine, I'm an ex-Marine, and I got people going, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I'm just like, well, that's part of the life I'm trying to like forget a little bit because some stuff happened, It's just like, this is a real thing.
Yes. People, I don't want to hate on civilians because they don't understand. It's not their fault. No one's ever educated them. It's like them poor guys who came back from Vietnam, the way they were treated, or even Korea. I mean, even Iraq. I mean, there were just people just don't understand what it is. It's hard to tell someone thank you when you really don't have a clue what it is they were doing. Or and I looked up at a lady one day and she's telling me, and I said, "So you're thanking me for killing people? Is that what you're thanking me for?" And she just looked at me like, well, I said, "You just told me thank you for my service." She said, "Well, but you put your life on the line." I said, "I did." She said, "I was just telling you thank you for that." I was like, "Well," I said, "Good comeback, because when I told her that, I said, you thanking me for killing people," her whole face went.
Yeah.
Because when you tell people, when you're telling a vet thank you for your service, you don't know what that vet did. Or, as far as you know, he might be one of them ones that got thrown out for being stupid. Yeah, a lot of people don't
Yeah.
make it, people.
Yeah, I've actually had to learn, and shout out to American Legion for actually one of the guys who I actually looked up to. He's no longer with us, he's passed away, but he was like, "Thank you for your service," and the response he taught me how to say was, "Well, you were worth it." You follow me? And that was
Yeah,
one
it's a good response.
Yeah, because I didn't know how to respond, man. I didn't. Look, when I first heard that, I was coming off the road. I think I told you that, like, when I was working in the high level rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I started hearing people saying, "Thank you for your service." I didn't know how to respond to that. I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" Like, I don't, like, I have questions just like you. I mean, at least I would say, "What do you mean?" But the thing about it, though, is that is part of the overall struggle, is getting somebody to understand that that person may look the exact same in the mirror, but what they've been through and how they went through this process to get to this level, like you're talking about, and then just magically just drop out the sky, and now you're supposed to just like walk this earth like everybody else. It's a long walk to get that accomplished. It's not impossible to handle it, because I'm a product of the product, right? So we need to be able to understand like these kinds of conversations, and actually really get people to understand that there's different levels to these conversations, and that's why I keep going back to this, these veterans who they have this early end of life. But here's the thing about it, and this is what I said, you're not seeing 22 new serial killers on the street. Like, that's not what you're seeing. These people are good by default. We just have to figure out a way to help them transition back into society and be just great, great civics.
Without putting on 5 tons of drugs.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
Yeah, it's one of the things. What's that, Carly? You looked me up. It says E1 classified 9 years. Well, you're not an E1 for 9 years, baby. So I can tell you that. It's well, because I've had friends try to look me up that are still. And matter of fact, 2 of them got in trouble for it. Well, because if you look, sometimes it'll say one time E1, sometimes it'll say lieutenant, sometimes say E4. Because I was all of that. Well, everybody starts out as E1 or ensign, depending on if you're an officer. You mean a warrant officer? Warrant officer different. Warrant officer is like
I call them the glue.
Yeah, they're just. I mean, they legit, but they're not enlisted, and they're not officers. They're just. No warrant officer I ever knew was happy about their rank. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, they're the saltiest of the salty. Like in the Marine Corps, they're like a constant salty Lance Corporal. They're just walking around.
Yeah, they're just. It's like an honorary thing because you did something.
Shout out to the warrant officers, man. Seriously, I got to show them some love, because especially when I was in the expeditionary unit, like they were just straight up sinew. They're the ones that keep everything operating. Our
they do.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility and an underthanked. So I would thank definitely the warrant officers, man.
See, that's what I was saying earlier. I figured that was going to be the job I was going to end up with, but no, I got the lieutenant junior grade, and then I got lieutenant. I mean, lieutenant I made like within 9 months, but nobody usually gets lifted from an E4 to a lieutenant junior grade. Just usually doesn't happen, and it's a field commission is what it is. And you only see field commissions usually during wartime. But my commander, my captain decided, and I know why they decided this, because they knew sooner or later they were going to come back to get me. My special forces team were going to come back to get, because what would go on with them is we'd be out for like a year, and then we'd go back and do MOS for about a year, and then they'd pull us back if they needed us, and we'd be with them about a year, and then it would go back. Well, a lot of times it was just training. A lot of times it wasn't anything special. It was just training. But then we'd go back because they didn't always need us. and sometimes they were training other groups, and especially what we did, they just like to keep our skills sharp. And then I still remember that when that captain said, "Oh, come on, we got a mission, and you're coming with us." I'm thinking, "Yeah, finally getting some shit." And my captain, first it was my commander. He said, Joe, let me talk to the captain about this." And the commander called me upstairs. He said, "Do you really want to go?" I said, "Well, kind of." He said, "You don't like your job here?" I said, "I love my job here." He said, "Well, guess what? You're staying here." And I looked up at him. "Yes, sir." Saluted him, "Yes, sir," and walked out. I wasn't going to argue with fleet commander no matter what. That was not going to happen. Well, the Nimitz at the time was the flagship, and at the time it's not anymore. I think the Gerald Ford is now, but you best salute your damn captain anyway.
About East Coast or West Coast?
We were Westpac.
Okay, we are Westpac because Eastpac, East Coast is that's the I think it's still the Mount Whitney.
Yeah, we were Westpac, and it pissed me off. So we're sailing one time, la 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 la. And there's Hawaii. I'm like, all right, I don't get to go to Hawaii. We sailed right the hell past it. Ooh. I'm like, so I asked my Lynch. I said, he said, well, some people. I said, I want to go. He said, Joe, you're not going anywhere. You're too valuable. You got to stay on the ship. I'm like, come on. He said, we're gonna pull in somewhere. And I was like, he said, were you cussing me? I said, no, sir, I wasn't cussing you. He said, it sounded like you were cussing me. I said, I wasn't cussing you, sir. He said, you sure? I said, I'm positive, sir. He said, well, you're not going to Hawaii. It's like, I walked out. He's like, and he comes back. He said, you were cussing me again. I said, no, sir, I was not. I was cussing Hawaii. He started laughing. Well, I mean, we got to go some places, but I wanted to go to Hawaii. And he was like, nope. I mean, a couple of the pilots got to go, and some of the enlisted people got to go. And well, generally, what they would do is they would fill up whatever cargo planes or eye in the skies, and each one of our fighters would hold two, so they would send them off, and they would go hang out in Hawaii for a while. And the rest of us were just sailing along, headed south. It's funny, Stan, thing you ever seen is when you cross the border. Oh my God!
See, I got AORs.
Oh man, they roll these poor guys. They were torturing, and I got lucky. Because I got promoted. Well, I got promoted just before they tortured these people, man. I was an officer at that time; they couldn't touch me, but it's they were painting them, kicking them. I felt so sorry for these poor enlisted guys. Well, yeah. it was like people. When you cross the border, it was a tradition on all ships, not just ours. It's just one of those things, and it was kind of sad, kind of funny at the same time. But once you cross and once it was over, but it also made everybody on the ship who was long time treat you differently. Yeah. Once you crossed the equator, you were like, all right. Yeah, well, I crossed it about, I don't know, I lost count. It's because we'd sail down to the end down there, and we'd kind of go around down by the south, by the Antarctic, and we'd hang around for a little while, and which we weren't supposed to be there in the first place, which all of that was classified area, but we did. Oh no! We hang around for a couple of days, and I'm like, oh, okay, what are we doing down here? We'd just be launching jets all day long, and then here we go. Now we stopped, and I think it was Argentina for a couple of days, which I didn't even know we were friends with them, and but we did get shore leave there, and then we got shore leave a couple other places. Then we got to Mexico, right? He said, we're gonna park out here, and we're gonna fly over there. And I'm like, really? I said, okay. So what they did is they dropped us all in Mexico, and they sailed the ship up to I think it was San Diego, and to do some work on it. So they left all the sailors in Mexico, and half the planes were down there, and half the planes were in Los Angeles. Well, actually, no, in San Francisco. And it was like, okay, that was kind of weird, but I had forgotten. So people after World War II, the Navy no longer allowed their planes to all be in one place because, the Japanese just kind of mowed them down like they were nothing. So now we disperse our planes in usually 5 or 6 locations, all within like 8 minutes of the carrier in case they got to come protect the carrier. And we're only allowed to have one carrier in port at one time. Yeah. Unless it's Norfolk for some reason. Norfolk gets to do whatever the hell they want, but they're on the East Coast, so I didn't care.
There. I mean, it's just, I mean, the thing about it, brother, again, because it's a big port. We also got the shipyard there, so it really helps out as far as just refurb and all the other stuff. retrofits.
Oh no, Chris. Norfolk is its own town. Yeah, it's its own little city. They do whatever the hell they want. I got a lot of high-ranking officials down there. And they're close to DC, so they just do whatever the hell they want. Now, when I was on Westpac wasn't run that way. Oh, we got to go to Alaska. Ooh, that was fun. Boring. Because they like to let us get off the ship anytime we could, because being cooped up in not like them poor submarine guys. Oh my God, them poor bastards. I remember the first time I got to go to sub, I was like, and y'all live down here 3 months at a time underwater? Jesus.
Yeah.
I said, y'all were throwing me off the ship. He's like, well,
I don't know how you did that, because I actually had a chance to be on one, and it only took one day for me to be like, get me off of here. And I was on the bottom rack at the bottom. I was at the bottom rack at the bottom.
Yeah, because you were probably hanging over the end of the rack. I was thinking about you. So, ladies and gentlemen, most racks in the Navy are set for 6 foot. You're taller than 6 foot. And actually, when I was in San Diego, it was 5'11". So if you're over that tall, you're hanging over the end. I mean, half the guys in my company, I was walking around night duty and their feet would be hanging over the end of the thing. I felt sorry for these guys, man. Their head be squished up against the top of the rack. It was a bitch. And that's another thing for Navy jets. Navy jets are not made for anybody over 6 foot tall. I mean, you're just like squished in there when you're fighting. I can just see it. Oh yeah, can I turn this? I got it.
And even the ships that I was on, brother, we're still using canvas racks. I mean, we had canvas racks, the coffin racks. I mean, it was just like, what are we talking about?
Well, so a lot of times when you walk into a ship, there'll be 3 stacked, 3 stacked, 3 stacked, 3 stacked. I mean, it's like a little area like the size of the room I'm in right now. There'd be 9 or 10 people sleeping in, or 12 people usually. And that was a bitch. It was, well, no, once I got promoted to officer, I got my own quarters. How you like that? I know, huh? I didn't have to share quarters. I was like, really? This is cool. And I got to eat with the officers, which the food was better. Not a lot better, I ain't gonna lie, but it was better. The Nimitz really fed their guys good, just like the subs fed their guys good. It's I remember the first. So this is funny as shit. I'm out there one day working on a jet, and I see a tender pulling. So I said, oh, we're going to get some new stuff. Maybe we'll get some steaks and stuff, right? And then I noticed the tender moved out a little bit, and we moved out. I mean, what the hell? They're making it longer. And then these things come across and hook up in several different areas on the ship. And I noticed 2 went down like this. I said, what did they miss? And I walked over, fucking submarine down there. I'm like, look at this shit. There's a sub in between us. Best way to tender a sub. You can't see the damn thing, and it's in between the tender and the carrier. You didn't even know it was there. It was crazy looking. And
unwrap?
Actually, the first one I seen was Ohio class. We had nuke. They were changing out the nukes while we were there, and they weren't taking them off the deck. They were, because the side of the carrier can open up like this, so they open up this slide. They're pulling the nukes out, putting them on these racks. And I mean, these things are big, people. And then these are, I forgot what they were, tried. And anyway, they had 24 of them carrying 24 warheads per missile. And we're sliding them in there. And I'm thinking, man, somebody drops one of this. All 3 of these ships just bit the big one, man. But I found that there's a special type of thing they put on there. So if they're dropped, they won't detonate. Thank God for that. And they load in new ones. They're loading all kind of fuel in there. Not for the submarine, because it's nuclear powered, just like we're nuclear powered. So when you see fuel going into a carrier, it's for the jets. When you see fuel going into the submarine, you're kind of like, what the hell is this for? It's for torpedoes. Some of the torpedoes run on liquid fuel, some run on hard fuel, which I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that, but and they have more torpedoes on there than you think they do. I remember this too. I was going through a rack set. It's supposed to be racks for the people. I get back there and it's cruise missiles. So, when you see them on TV, oh, we got 33 cruise missiles. Well, guess what? It's 99 to 150. I can say that because Trump pulled one up at Syria last time he was president and unloaded 99 missiles at him, cruise missiles. And just recently, one of the admirals came out and said the new ones carry 150 cruise missiles. Now, remember this, people. Cruise missiles can be loaded with traditional warheads or nuclear warheads. And I know for a fact that they carry tactical nukes on board. So I'm kind of like, oh, okay. And then let me off this damn submarine. And I I've worked all over. I worked in the conning tower. I worked all up in the cockpit, I like to call it, all the way back to the engine room. I remember the head engineer comes up. He said, "What are you doing back here? You're not enlisted, man. You have no business being back here." And I said, "Did you salute me when I walked?" We don't have to salute on board this submarine, which they don't, by the way.
Yeah.
And I said, "Get out of my damn way." I said, "They're sending me back here because apparently you don't know how to fix electronics." And he's like, "Excuse me?" I said, if I tell you this again, you're going to the brig." "Yes, sir." And he got out the way. I said, "I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to show you how to fix this in the future so I don't have to come back on this tin can you call a place to live." He got pissed. And so I fixed it. I said, "You see how easy this was to fix?" He said, "I would have never thought about that." And he calls me Joe. And I'm like, "Yeah," I said, "You can call me Joe. It's all right." Because they're informal on board a submarine because it's, it's the way it is. It keeps them from losing their mind. He said, "Well, since you're here, it's lunchtime. They're going to be serving ribeyes." I go in there, they got a freaking ribeye this thick, this big. I'm like, "Man, look at this." I said, "Man, the food was good. I ain't gonna lie." And I made quite a few friends on that first one. And the second was, I think, a Trident class. No, and what was it? It was a Wolf. It was one of the Wolfpack subs. So, and I'm talking to the commander. I'm up there working on their sonar. And I can't tell you what this sonar did, people, because they would come after me even today. But I'm talking to him. He said, I asked him, I said, "Well, how do you keep track of Russian submarine?" Because back then China wasn't a thing. I said, "How do you keep track of?" He said, "We know where every Russian submarine is." He said, "If the war ever breaks out, they will never get a chance to shoot. They will be at the bottom of the sea in less than 5 minutes." I was impressed. And then I heard a Russian admiral just 2 years ago. He's living in Britain. Talk about, "Oh yeah, Americans know where every one of our subs is. In less than 5 minutes, they'll all be at the bottom of the ocean." He said, "We don't know how they track it at first." He said, "At first we thought somehow they had put tracking devices on our subs." He said, "But that's not how they do it. Because at one time we had all these sonar stations underwater deployed all around the world. Well, we gave them to the whale tracking people. So obviously we don't need them anymore. So we have a different way of tracking them."
But that's bigger than what most people realize. That and also the underwater cables for communication.
Oh yeah, and they protect them damn things. Well, Russia technically cut one. Where was it? No, that was a pipeline in was it Denmark or Sweden or somewhere up there. Oh no, they tried to blame it on terrorists, but it was the Russians. Only the Russians have a submarine going that deep, so it was the Russians. Well, we keep track of all of that stuff because we don't want to get DC blown up. And now, if Trump gets his golden shield and Elon Musk keeps our country becomes invulnerable to Russian missiles. So Putin was talking some shit just recently, and Elon said, "I will knock out every missile you launch. I will knock out of the sky." He will just ram one of his little satellites right into, and actually not little, but kind of big. He said, "I'll just ram him into a knocking in space." And he goes, "Remember this, Mr. Putin, I can produce satellites and rockets much faster than you can." He said, "And every time I launch one rocket, I'm going to put up a couple hundred of these things." He said, "There's no way you're getting another nuclear missile into our country." And he meant it. So with that, and then Trump gets his golden shield, that and the way our submarines track other subs, going to make it really hard. And now we're tracking Chinese subs because we don't trust China even a little bit. We're trying to make our country invulnerable.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Did you ever see what I said over at the United Nations a few months back?
Repeat it so I don't forget. My brain doesn't work.
Because he made very poignant words. I want to introduce our next speaker, Fred Smith, who also has done the same with his life. He's the founder and CEO of Speed Scaling and the Power Agency, but he's a decorated U.S. military veteran. He was in Iraq for 43 days in the desert alone. Fred Smith, please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and to actually cut down my time as well. And also to the combat vets out here, thank you for your service as well. To dovetail off of everyone talking today for the brief amount of time that we have, today's challenges aren't just about economics, as we obviously know. This is a hidden strategic collapse, and we're not ready. So again, coming as a combat veteran Marine, war was never about armies. War is about confusion. And the word war itself
comes from the Proto-Indo-European root word wares, which means to confuse, to mix up, not to destroy, not to disorient, to entangle us until free action is impossible. So today, war is no longer fought with guns. It's fought with numbers, complexity, and engineered confusion. Systems are just so bloated that no nation today can stand alone. Dependencies are just so quietly built that freedom collapses while appearing to no expand. I'm also a finance guy, so I'll go straight into the numbers if that's okay. Global debt right now exceeds $340 trillion with a T, 10 times faster than we actually produce real value. Every dollar of supposed growth is matched with $5 to $7 of leveraged, unpaid, invisible debt. It's inflation that doesn't reflect our true prosperity. It reflects engineered scarcity. So we get that through derivatives, contracts, unpayable bonds, and all of this tightens up around all 8 billion lives on this planet. So here's the wound that we refuse to name. We are raising a generation not for freedom, but for lifelong servitude. Not to create, but to obey these invisible mechanisms. So this isn't governance, it's beyond that. This is actually collapse by design. And to keep it brief and simple, here is what we have to do. We have to name this. We've got to name this. It goes from a should to a must. So speed scaling isn't a theory. It's a codified system of strategic duplication, operational sovereignty, and post-collapse reconstruction. As he mentioned, things are getting real, and the deadline is near, and the time is now. Thank you for your time and your trust. I appreciate you.
I want to say just one thing very quickly in 15 seconds. I think we really need to stand up and really acknowledge these two men who gave their lives and not just do rhetoric. Please. Okay. So now.
So that's what you were saying was kind of tying into that, because I look at it from a very high level as far as the monetary funds, you know, in comparison to war, in comparison to combat and everything. To me, it's everything. So you've got a big brain. What are you seeing?
Wait, you know, when you said that, it first off, it tipped me off on something else. So if we jump back to 2016, China was forecast to catch up with America at around $30 trillion in GDP. But Trump comes in and don't know how exactly I did it. He keeps them to 9 or 10. So now, again, China was forecast to pass America, but somehow or another, Trump has kept him to just $11 trillion in GDP. So at that rate, and of course, we're at $36 trillion in GDP, but we're also $36 trillion in debt. So our GDP is actually matching a debt. At that rate, we can never really get anywhere. We're just kind of stuck in a loop, a spinning loop at that. And the bad part about that is China and Russia is worse than we are, and so is Europe. So once your debt reaches a certain point, and we're getting close to that, how do you control it? How do you control the people, for that matter? People are upset because for some reason or another, they can't seem to get out of debt.
Yep. The
whole world's drowning in debt, and no one really has come up with a plan to get out. Now, Trump may do it. I mean, he's bringing in $15 trillion in new industry, which drops our GDP to about $21 trillion. But still, we're talking $21 trillion. Where did this money come from? People, it's this imaginary money. Let's just look at it like this. Where did $36 trillion, or what he just said, $360 trillion, where did it come from, people? Where's this money? Where did we get the money to be in debt that far? I mean, what are we borrowing from? I guess is the better question. And as long as we got a place to borrow from with that kind of money, we're going to keep drowning. And eventually, a good bunch of y'all are going to drown out because there's just no way to make it up.
Yeah.
Sort of, short of wiping some nations off the face of the planet, there's no real way of making this debt up.
Well,
And
that's one of the reasons why I'm so heavy on business, especially veteran-owned businesses, brother, because we're smart enough to really understand if we can get our infrastructure back with business, because I'm missing that. I have stats right here showing that, most veterans, when they come out of the military, 47% of them start actually with their business, but they don't even understand how a business works. So they wind up going under in the first place, but they got the heart to start. You know what I'm saying?
and I mean, you can get grants and loans from the government, but let's remember, Pearson, a grant is money you don't have to pay back. So if we're issuing grants on a nonstop basis, who's paying for that? Well, you're paying for it, but where are you paying for it? So you're paying. So remember this: we broke away from England for 2% tax on tea. 2%, people. That's why we broke away from England.
We're petty.
2%. So so what do you think we're paying right now? So you get taxed when you make your money, you get taxed on your home. The home that you bought and paid for, you have to pay tax on every year. Why is that? You pay tax on your car, you pay tax on your insurance, you pay tax on your groceries, you pay tax on everything in the world. So America's taxed it lower than everybody else. So we'll give an estimate. So we'll say 25% of your money goes to tax. Now that's a conservative estimate. When you go to Europe, it's much higher, 38 to 48% of all their money goes to tax. Now, the question is, what is all that money? Where's it going? Who's getting it? What's it being spent on? Well, some of it's being spent on military. Whoever posted that on on Pal Talk, but still, America only spends. We'll round it up. America spends $1 trillion out of its 36 trillion a year. So where the hell can 35 trillion going to? Is it going to paying our debt off? Obviously not, because our debt's $36 trillion. Oh, well, we'll say 20 since Trump got bringing in 15 trillion. But so if we're making 36 trillion, why isn't any of that going to our debt? Well, it is going to our debt. It's going to interest on our debt. So we can't get out. We can't climb out of the hole because the interest is so much that what we're basically paying on is interest every year. And now America's a little bit different because America cheats. America's borrowing money against its own money. In other words, we're taking money from the Social Security program that don't actually exist yet. So is your children going to be in trouble? No, not as long as there's money in our country. But we keep doing that. We just keep taking money from places because people always tell me, oh, we owe all that money to China. So, and I'm like, we owed all that money to China. They would already foreclosed on our country. I said, it's
all
not
the loans, all the bonds. Yeah.
I said there is $2 trillion that China does hold, but it's on credit card debt. And we don't give a shit about credit card debt. We'll just say, hey, guess what? We're not going to pay you. And then they're out $2 trillion on an $11 trillion economy. That's tough to eat $2 trillion. But for us, it's as long as we're at this cycle that everything that we're paying in is going to interest, we're screwed. There's no way out. Maybe Fred can get up and give you a way out, but right now, it doesn't matter what country you live in, you're in debt, and there's no way out of debt. Well, except for maybe Morocco. I think they're not in debt, but everybody else is in debt.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, brother, is that we are a debtor nation. And if everybody lived that the way that the United States lived, we would need 6 planets just to hold all the junk that we have. So part of it has to do with, part of us just has to do with us just taking responsibility for not like all of this outflow towards junk. It's just like George Carlin said, your junk turns into shit and then you put it in storage, right? So it's just like we tend to be a very consumer-esque nation. That's one of the reasons why our dollar is backed by that kind of confidence versus the way that it was before when it was pegged to gold. So the thing about it, though, is that what we're missing right now is a huge push on real commerce. Like really, we became more of a service nation. That's why Trump is tariffing people to bring like these manufacturers back, or, people flying Birkin bags across the pond just so that they can sell them, still keeping the tariffs off. People don't understand that like we have been so lenient on just our intellectual property. We've been lenient on a lot of things that we've let a lot of our sovereignty just slip by the wayside. So what I'm seeing, again, I'm bipartisan. I don't care. My whole thing is I like to look at the mechanics of things just to see how things work. And what I see as a workable action is for us to your point, stop taking all of these drugs, really getting back into our own individual sovereignty, bringing back moral standards, having civics back in place, but understanding that the reasons why and I've been overseas just like you've been overseas, the narrative's completely different over there about America versus how it is over here. But if we really understand that all we have to do is just become more sovereign and just literally mind our business, like I don't know if you've seen that thing with with Ben Franklin. I can pull it up real quick, but he was one of the first ones who came up with the mind your business coin. It was the original penny. So because he had that vision and he saw that we really, if we come together as a collective and understand that we are independent as well as interdependent, then what we're doing is creating all of these economies of scale locally. Tax is a form of inflation. People don't understand that. And the miscommunications that we have about business, plus we're having people automatically just not even understanding how business works. We're not trained to really see what me and you see at a high level. We're trained to just be employees versus being sovereign business owners, or at a minimum, just coming together collectively as local communities, connecting dots together. Like I'm in California, as you know, you've been out here, we've hung out. It's just like California by itself is literally between the third and fifth largest GDP on the planet. People don't understand that. So why is it that one state can have so much resources? But my answer is we all have this resource. What we don't understand is that we are the machine. Like when you get that idea that we're not cogs in the machine, we're actually the machine itself, then you go, wait, I put out all of this energy and I still can't make my rent. Wait, I put out all of this energy and I can barely afford groceries. Wait, I'm smart. What am I missing? Like what part of the dots, what part of this sequence am I missing? And I learned that from being in the Marine Corps. I went from doing door-to-door sales to being homeless to learning this incredible, insane knowledge base. And it's all boiled around the stuff that we're talking about right now. All we have to do is just understand that there are great gatekeepers of this information, but some of them actually gatekeep to keep us suppressed. So when you understand that, then you really start understanding how important community really is, because there's a community who suppresses people. Do you have a social media industrial complex? You have don't even get me started, bro. Like that's a whole different ball of wax. But my point is, when we understand basic communication and how it works, then you start understanding how important people really are in your lives. And we just really need to focus in on literally minding our own business at this point in time. We get that part straightened out. Look, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up. During the pandemic, everybody was perfectly capable of sitting down for 2 weeks. And it became like a month. And it's like, hey, I don't like you. Hey, why am I married with you? Hey, why is this? Why is this? We started asking questions. And then when the economy opened back up, we stopped asking questions. When we learn how to become more critical thinkers versus critical people, we start seeing these dots connect by default.
We got what's that? No, Christopher, we got a long ways to go. So if America would just say, okay, if we would just dedicate all of our sale GDP, okay, because when you get GDP, it gets confusing. Mm-hmm. Technically, the country makes about $5 trillion a year, but when you figure in everything else that goes along with it, it makes 36 trillion. So between us and Europe, we control about 120 trillion. We control the majority of money in the world. So you would think that we could just stop one year and say, okay, you know what? We're just going to pay off the debt. We're just going to pay it off, whatever else, and then we'll go back to just living our lives and let's start building up again. First off, if y'all don't understand, if the debt was paid off, your life would be so much better. I mean, taxes would drop across the board. I mean, immensely across the board. You're talking where we're talking 21, 25, 28%, it would be like 5%. So I'll give you an example. I live in a state which wants to do away with income tax, with state income tax. We know Florida and Texas don't have state income tax. They love their people. Mississippi's getting rid of the state income tax. Plus, they have just dropped tax on food to 2%. Now, it's a little tricky because they raise the tax on gas by 3%. But we've already got an outrageously low state tax for gas to start off with. So right now, California is 24% higher price than any other state in the union, and Mississippi is 12% lower than any state in the union. That means if you live in California and you move to Mississippi, you are paying 36% less in taxes than you ever did in your entire life. 36%, people. Think about the money you just saved. 36%. Now, Mississippi right now, Mississippi right now is the second largest growing state in the union because we're bringing in stuff. We're bringing in industries. We already got 18, 20 casinos, but we're bringing in hotel industry. We're bringing in building cars all over the place. So it's an outrageously fast growing state, and still it's lowering its taxes. It's not raising its taxes. It's lowering them. No income tax, no state income tax right off the bat saves you money. And now there's an argument in the state to do away with property tax, not for businesses, but for homes. If you're a homeowner, they want to I pay. So if I wasn't exempt, I would pay about $6,000 a year in taxes. But we are exempt because I'm older, so I only pay about $600, which is great. I'm not complaining. But think about how much money you would save on that alone. It's just the way we do things as a nation is some states think about how they can help citizens. Some states think about how they can screw. I'm not going to get into what states or what because that becomes a blue-red thing. And I am a centrist, so I like that. I mean, like I say all the time, I'm an equal opportunity hater. Because there's lots of stuff to hate on both states, all the states in the union about. But Texas and Florida, they also want to do away with property tax. So you have states in the union that are really wanting to do away with serious taxes so you, the people, can keep that money. So how can they do that? How? Here's another one for you. One of the reasons Atlanta's taken over Hollywood is, you know what? So Hollywood charges like an 18% tax on people who make movies. You know what Atlanta charges? 1%. 1%. And on top of that, Atlanta will let you use any building, any property, or any vehicles for free. How can they do that? How can it's 18% in LA and 1% in free stuff to go along with it there? How can it? You know why? Because it brings in so much money to the state and the city. They make so much money off the people coming in, the people wanting to watch, all kind of other money that they don't need to be greedy. Yeah. It's how they got the Delta Hub by doing a 2% tax. New Orleans had the Delta Hub, but New Orleans wouldn't come down from 9%. Atlanta said, we'll give you 2%. Well, Delta said, adios amigos, because Delta makes a lot of money. Yeah. So, there are ways to save our nation. But most states, and it doesn't matter if it's a red or a blue state, do not want to do them. They just don't want to because they're greedy and they want that money. And a lot of that money will never make it to any programs it should go to. Look at what just happened with Doge. Look how much money we were just spending on bullshit. When we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, and it's going to probably end up over $1 trillion in bullshit. Money we should have never been spending. And now we got Act Blue. We found out that, by the way, I don't know if you noticed or not, Fred, Act Blue, Pocahontas has been funneling money away from the fire victims in California to go into Act Blue, which only funds Democratic candidates. Yeah, they're doing an investigation.
I'm not that well versed on that stuff, brother. That's what I'm saying. That's why.
Yeah. So I mean, when you get into this stuff, the more you get into this, the more you find. Oh, wait a minute, Jimmy. Oh, no, I'm not saying Republicans are innocent now. I'm just talking about what the Democrats are doing because they're the ones in poor standing right now. But don't think that a lot of the Republicans haven't done shit like this, too. They have. It's just Texas and Florida looks at the world differently. They want this because, first off, they both have a lot of people living in their states. So they're making enough money off of sales tax and other taxes that they don't need the state income tax. And they don't need the property tax. They don't need it. There's too much other money coming in from too many other places. Just in tourist business alone in both states, they could get rid of most of the taxes they have. They've also dropped their food tax down below 5%. So these are states, because food's high right now, are trying to help you out. But you're not going to find that across all 50 states and 6 commonwealths. It's just because, unfortunately, places like New York and California are greedy. And it's not because they need the money, it's because they want the money. It's a much different thing. But hey, sooner or later it'll come back to bite them in the ass. Losing I did an interview with Mayor Brass. I don't know if you knew if I did this. When I was out in LA last time, when I was shooting out there in LA.
Okay.
So I did an interview with her and I was asking her, I didn't ask her anything about the fire. I figured I'm not from there. It's not my business. I said, but look, I said, I noticed, I noticed Atlanta, New Orleans, and Canada are pulling almost all of LA's business. I said, how is LA going to survive without its Hollywood industry? Oh, it's going to come back. I said, I don't think so. I said, I was just in Atlanta just recently. My sister lives up there, and every block you turn, there's a movie being made. I said, same thing in New Orleans. Every block you turn, there's a movie being made. I said, think about it. They got the whole South, all the plantation, all the buildings down here, and the swamp's a great place to make movies. And then Atlanta offers you, Georgia offers you all kind of stuff from the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to the mountains. I said, I don't know what else you want. Old buildings, new buildings. It's a global city. It's got a global airport. It's a hub, which makes it easier for stars to come and go. And when you ask Hollywood stars, they say they prefer to be there than Hollywood. They said it's safer. There's nobody picking it. And you know what? Do you see any riots going on in Atlanta? No, you do not. You know why? Because southern cities don't put up with that shit. It's not something that's going to be allowed. We'll let you look. You want to protest, you can protest. You want to get fined? Oh no, you're going to jail. All of you going to jail. Even if they got to fill up jails all the way to another state, you're going to jail. They don't put up with that kind of behavior. They're not going to let you put the citizens' lives in jeopardy. It's a big difference. But you want to protest, they'll let you protest. You just got to behave yourself when you do it. And they also have laws in the South. You cannot burn the American flag. You will go to jail for it. Sorry, guys.
Well, that's all over the country, brother. That's what I'm saying. The civics classes don't reflect that. When I'm from the inner city, and we used to have those civics classes, so that's still a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot. What are you talking about, Denise? Oh, you mean for Trump? No, Trump appealed to a lot of black men this time around, a lot of Hispanic men this round, a lot of young people. He just had a bigger appeal for, and there's reasons for that. This is a perfect example. When you hear a Hispanic talk, he says he's American. If you listen to black people talk today, they're not saying they're African American. They're just saying they're American. That's a big change in my lifetime, just from 20 years ago. That's a major change. It's an attitude change is what it is. So we're seeing this in every sector of our life. It doesn't matter what group you come from. We're seeing major changes in the adjustment of what we think of our country. But unfortunately, we do have groups that think that Palestine is first. I'm confused about that. And then wait, so I'm watching these guys the other day talk about the Houthis. Oh, we want to be women wrapping their faces up. I love what Bill Maher said. He said, yeah, go over there and live with them. The first day you can't get your Starbucks delivered to your house, you'll be home with your mama.
Well, see, Joe, that's what I'm saying, brother. What you're saying is
that's
stuff
some crazy shit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and that's what I'm saying. What you're saying is stuff that I don't have any reality on because, again, I'm coming from an entirely different lane.
Yeah.
Like the lane that I'm coming from is strictly about commerce. It's about industry. It's about profit and loss and balance sheets, like period.
Well, that's another thing. So what group do you think has the most new businesses starting this year? What group in us? What ethnic group in our country do you think has the most new businesses starting this year?
I really don't think any of them, and here's why: because the problem that we're not addressing is the fact that the information is wrong. Like period.
Well, a lot of it is.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, brother. That's why I keep leaning back on our military veterans because you even said it earlier. You said it earlier, like we have a certain process. Like I know exactly what it would take to go from private to private first class to lance corporal, corporal to sergeant, sergeant to staff sergeant, right? I don't see anybody in this lane codifying that at all. I've spent over $1 million of my own personal money just to finally get the right answers. And it came with a huge price. And some of it was mental health related. So
yeah, a lot of it is.
Yeah. So until we can actually get those same checklists like we had in the military into the civilian hands, it doesn't matter who's starting what, in my opinion. What matters is, are you getting the result? If you're able to get the result and get it consistently, just like you see, like all of these top level brands, it's the reasons why they're not missing. It's more than just data. People don't understand this. Data is two ways, and I equate it to a pineapple. You can have a fresh pineapple right here, and you can have that other pineapple after you have your bowel movement. They were both pineapples at one point in time. If we get the fresh, relevant data and all this on all the things that really work, what'll happen is everybody across this planet, not just the United States, we will get the right information and we can just execute on it. This is the problem that I'm seeing in social media right now. People are doom scrolling. They don't have any wherewithal to stop because they're so conditioned to be looking for information that now it's turned into entertainment, and they forget the real reasons that, number one, unless you have on your calendar when you plan on dying, it's not on my calendar. So life is short. So let's really get our priorities together and see exactly what we need to do to not only serve ourselves, but to serve the general public. That's my position on all of this stuff.
Well, because it's a good position to be. Carly, right now the country is very strange. So if you want to go looking for groups of this, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and this will help you out. So the Republicans are going to say one thing, the Democrats are going to say another thing. And then, believe it or not, the Europeans are actually tracking the United States as well. So you have three different forms. So I'm going to tell you what you do. You merge them together, and then you might have a closer view of what's actually going on. It might have a closer view of actually going on. So with veterans in the United States right now, it's about 7% of veterans own businesses in the United States. That's great. It's much better than it was just 20 years ago when it was like 2%. Veterans are trying to get it, but where does that number come from? Well, I will tell you this, the Republicans and the Democrats do agree on that number, but the actual Fed number is different. So when you use numbers, you got to be very, 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 very careful.
Yep.
What are you talking about? White men? White men are probably making up about 7% of the, maybe 9% of the new businesses right now. And that's because a lot of them have not had the education they need to really get out there. Now, what bothers me is when I see Democrats running in Michigan. There are three of them running I would consider communist, and the one in New York I would also consider communist. It's so back in the 40s and 50s, there was actually laws against communists running for the House or the Senate. Now, I don't know if those laws still stand or not, but they need to check into them because we don't need any communists serving in any part of the United States in any shape, form, or fashion. Not so much because they can get away with too much, but because they're teaching our youth a bad lesson. It's just anytime you see a bunch of college kids chanting for the Houthis or for any terrorist group, we've got a problem that needs to be rectified. Oh no, it has nothing to do with color. It has to do with no. When you go to campus, it's gonna be a freaking rainbow of colors. I don't mean gay. I just mean a rainbow of colors. When you go, that's what you're gonna see, because they're being taught by their professors that these groups are better than the United States are. Really, personally, I can't think of any country that exists on this planet today that gives you the opportunity or the freedom that the United States does. None, or any terrorist group for that matter either. And it's like out in LA when you see them carrying a Mexican flag and burning a United States flag. Really? Take your ass back to Mexico. It's what, 3 hours away from LA, 4 hours away? Just going back home. Just take your ass on home. I mean, there are some things that need to be adjusted in our country. And I have seen some attitude change in the last 10 years, which I'm really happy to see. But in general, I see a lot of stuff that is just incorrect, being taught the wrong way. You should never have college kids, one, hating on Jews, two, wanting to carry other people's flags instead of United States flag. I mean, look, we have open borders. Take your ass to one of them other countries. So for the ladies that are listening to me right now, if you go to the Middle East, you're not free anymore. You're a slave. You're just a slave. That's all you are. Check out the Muslim country. You don't have to take me from my word. You're a slave now. I mean, the word slave physically comes from the Middle East. Go check it out for yourself. You don't have to believe me. So take this in mind, or you'll end up in a harem somewhere or something worse. They don't have the freedoms that Americans have. The closest freedoms to Americans are the Europeans, and even they have some squirrely, hitchy governments. I mean, come on. Britain just put a girl in jail for 7 years for getting mad and making a tweet on Twitter. You don't see nobody here going to jail for that. The Germans are doing the same thing. I mean, that's not freedom of speech. I don't know what the hell that is. I mean, you can get on Twitter and tweet all day long, say every stupid thing you want, and nobody's going to come put you in jail. So think
Well,
about these kind of things, because you can't balance out our country when you have a third of our country just hating all the time. It takes away.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't
no, I
cut you off.
appreciate that. No worries. Yeah, we got about 5 more minutes and then we have to do a hard wrap. But what I was going to say, Joe, is that, the thing about where we're at as a society and as a culture, not just in the United States, but all around the planet, is that communication is skewed. It's not there. What I'm looking for right now is an overall good standard for 8 billion people across this planet that we can all come to an agreement with, because that's where the have nots, you have people in between. I've worked in corporate America. I've been in the hood. I've been all over the place just like you. The only thing that I'm seeing in common right now is the fact that we're breathing air. And other than that, we
That's a
got to
good
be
one.
able to just really find a little bit more than that, because again, life is short, and I want everybody to really enjoy, because I had a lot of fun in the military. It was tough, and me and you both know we
Yeah.
had some really hard times, right? But just understanding that we are connected by the air that we breathe. Maybe that's a little too esoteric, maybe that's a little woo woo, but I can tell you the companies and organizations that I've worked with, whether I'm consulting them and I've coached them, they're all about collaboration. And that's one thing that we're taught from a very low level, is that competition is a good thing, when in fact it's counterintuitive. Like, and I got the receipts. If you ever sat your butt in a car, chances are I helped get you there. And the way that we did that was from other groups collaborating with other groups, and they were all about sharing real knowledge and information, not this end user stuff. That's what we're experiencing right now. That's why it's called the middle class. It's the messy middle, because that's where all the confusion lies. Oh my God, I need this because of this, and this person looks better than me, and oh my God, this person's this age and they've got this much money. I mean, it's all of this comparative crap that really keeps us in our heads versus actually playing the game. And you have the strategists, and you know this from a strategy viewpoint. You've got high-level strategist people out here, and that's all that they do. That, look, the word campaign, guys, because I'm an advertiser and a marketer, that's literally a military word. So if you've ever heard the word campaign, guess what? Either you're a cause of that campaign, meaning that you're creating it, or you're the effect of it, meaning that you're the consumer. That's how easy I'm going to explain economics right now. But other than that, you have to choose a side. Either you're going to learn how to play this game, or you're going to be the effect of this game. And that's one of the things that I had to learn from a very high level in the Marine Corps, that I've never, ever, ever have gotten rid of. And I'm not going to, because that is the game. It's like, period. Either you're going to be on this side, or you're going to be on this side, or you're going to be right in the middle talking about stuff that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what's going to be said about you when you're 6 feet under, like straight up.
Yes. Well, you're going to become the slave to your things. Is what's going to happen.
100%, man.
Yeah. No, I'm being serious, people. Oh, you got to buy this. You got to buy that. I got so many friends. I said, "What are you doing?" Oh, I'm on eBay. Oh, I'm on Amazon. Really? What are you doing? Just cruising. I said, "You're gonna buy something, aren't you?" Probably. I said, "You have become a slave to Amazon, haven't you?" Oh, no, Joe. I said, "Really? Let's talk about how many things you bought this month." Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I said, "No, because that's why." Look, people.
Yep.
I know y'all want to buy stuff. It makes you feel better. I'm not hating on that. I like to buy stuff from time to time myself. I mean, come on, look. I got a lightsaber right here. Well, I didn't buy this. It was given to me. But still, you see. But the point is, I mean, if you look around my room, there's stuff I bought and there's stuff I get. Yeah, I'm fortunate because I get a lot of stuff given to me. But think about it this way. I came out of the Navy with no money, $0. Okay. I didn't even use I could have got money from the military, but I didn't. I opened my construction company. I just sold it this year. Okay. There was another business I have that I also sold, and I also have United Public Radio. So if you really try, you can make it in the world, and you can be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be, you don't have to work for Starbucks or McDonald's. And another thing, we are not paying people working McDonald's $20 an hour. Y'all can kiss my big ass. All right. McDonald's is a starter job. It's not the job that's supposed to make you a millionaire. All right. Maybe if you work your ass up to manage it, but the rest of you, no, that's just to get you used to working every day, 40 hours a week. Yes, and I agree with you, Michael. Maybe we shouldn't have to work 40 hours a week. The Europeans don't, but the Japanese work 50 hours a week. So who's better off here?
Well, it's us, because I said we got an AI, brother. We don't even have time to talk about that. But there's so many levers that we have that's the reasons why I have this channel. That's why I'm glad you're on it. That's why we're talking, is because we have a bunch of resources. The question is, who's going to be really willing to turn a wrench like me and you have? And that's one thing that what I like about veterans is the fact that they've proven that they can turn a wrench. Even your worst veteran is still turning a wrench. They're operators from some type of level. So to be able to really put them back into the economy versus 22 of them just going bye-bye every single day, which is closer to 45.
And that's another people. Give a vet a hand if you can. You know, most vets, if you help them to get into business, it will be rewarding for both of you. I know, look, I know a lot of people that got a ton of money out there. They're just sitting on for whatever reason. Help a vet out. If you help him out, he's going to help you out. Trust me. It's we're losing too many people every day, and we're just talking about the vets. We're losing a lot every day, which we don't have to. We could be doing things for them to allow them to become useful members of society again. But no, I would rather have them commit suicide, which just burns my ass, by the way. And it's not just y'all. There's so many opportunities for people, especially in America. I mean, there are grants and loans you can get from our government to open businesses up. You can get involved in all sorts of things. You don't have to be the guy working at Mickey D's or Burger King or one of those coffee shops somewhere, like, what is that, Tabasco shop? I mean, I'm sorry, just picking on y'all, but I know we always have to have people working in jobs, but those are for younger people. Once you hit in your 30s, you should be doing something for yourself and your family, something you can leave behind to your kids, something that can make a difference in other people's lives. And something that you're not always constantly paying taxes. Because remember, if you own your own business, you just cut your tax rate by half.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch more to what Joe's saying, and we're definitely going to cover more of that. If you like what you saw, please send us a like, comment, give us the good, the bad, and the ugly, because again, Joe's amazing. We are building a real community to really help out other veterans. John, thank you for blazing the path.
Oh, wait, one thing before we go. Fred's going to be joining us tonight on the other show on News on the Flip Side. So if y'all didn't catch enough, you can catch us tonight on that as well. We'll be talking some other stuff, but anyway, I'll shut up now. Let you take us out.
No, I appreciate that, brother. And seriously, I want to thank you in front of everybody for just really blazing the path. I mean, me and you kind of like cross paths 30 years later, which is totally incredible. I learned it 30 years ago. So it's just like, this is full circle for me. And really thank you for just blazing it. And you really are a pioneer in the industry, because again, you've created a platform where people can really speak what they mean and mean what they say. And as long as they don't talk about stuff that's too far out the box, anything's fair game. So thank you for the space, brother. I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, that's it for us today for New Room. If you got, like I said, please send Joe a shout out. He's on social media. Go follow him. I'm also going to post some links as well. And much love. And we will see you next week, guys. Peace.
This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command grade truth. Let's begin.